Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and we got an absolutely fantastic show coming your way today. You know, we're going to talk about this issue that I think many of us might have or might have members in our family that might have this. I wouldn't call it a disease, but it's kind of affect the mental capacity sometimes. So, but we're going to talk about that one. You know, today we got Dr. Valender going to be co-hosting with me. And of course, we got the executive producer and Dr. Michelle Cooley always keeping us in line. How are you doing today, Dr. Ballin? How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm grateful.
That's what I'm talking about. And what about you, Dr. Cooley?
I'm doing great. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
You know, so I'm excited about this topic that we're going to talk about, but we're going to introduce this topic, solving the ADHD riddle. But I want to bring Todd on so he can help us get this party started. How you doing, Todd? How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy Friday, everybody.
That's what I'm talking about,
Happy
man.
Friday.
And Todd, we got this great topic that we're going to lock everybody in all the different platforms in, and we're going to go from there.
All right. Sounds good to me.
So your call, my friend.
We're going here in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
At PragerBibleCruise.com.
It's Your Life is sponsored by James J.C. Cooley.
Dr. James J.C. Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life.
Hello. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. And we got another absolutely magnificent show coming your way today. We got this guest that's going to come, and she's going to help us solve this. And I don't even know if you call it a disease or issue or mental capacity. I don't know what it is, but I know it exists. And I was told that there is a way that we can solve this riddle. And so I'm excited to have this guest on today, and I'm looking forward to it. How you doing, Dr. Cooley? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I can't wait to hear what this guest has to say. A lot of people have heard of this topic, but do they really know a lot about this topic? So,
Well,
I
you might want to just tell them what the topic is that we're talking about.
oh, you ready?
No,
Wow.
no, no,
Okay.
not yet. I'm just saying,
No, I'm not going to tell them what the topic is until I tell
well,
my.
our audience want to know what's it's solving the ADHD problem, and you're gonna talk about that. And guest co-hosting with me today is Dr. Ballinger. How are you doing today, Doc? I think you're on mute. Uh, I think you're on mute, Dr.
Yeah,
Ballinger.
yeah. Again, I'm doing great. Grateful to be here with you all today.
Wow. So I tell you, whichever platform that you're watching us on, was it E360 TV, was it YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, over 65 other platforms. Welcome to the show. And if you want to be part of the conversation with this topic that Michelle going to introduce to you in a minute, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on, ask any questions that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer, or pick up the phone and dial 1-888-344-1170. Again, that's 1-888-344-1170. Michelle, can you please introduce the topic again, the purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely fantastic guest?
Well, yes, the title of today's show is Solving the ADHD Riddle. So we're having a sit-down conversation with Dr. Connie McReynolds. She's a licensed psychologist and author, and she's going to discuss how her book addresses the complexities of ADHD from a holistic perspective, and what are some common misconceptions about ADHD, and how neurofeedback works and its potential as a non-invasive treatment for ADHD. So again, she's a licensed psychologist with a 35-year career in rehabilitation, pioneered neurofeedback clinics in Southern California to treat ADHD, anxiety, depression, and trauma. Her book, Solving the ADHD Riddle, reached #1 on Amazon in 8 categories. Dr. McReynolds is a beacon of hope, passionately committed to improving lives through her innovative approaches. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Connie McReynolds.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today. I'm just so grateful to be here with you.
We're so happy to have you on the show, Doc. I know it's a couple of times that we was scheduled to have you on, but we finally got you on today, and I'm excited about, and I know our audience are excited to get a better understanding what ADHD is and how you go about solving that problem. So I tell you what, can you tell our audience a little bit more about you? Where you grew up, what makes you so passionate about the job that you do?
Certainly. So I do have over 35 years of career in rehabilitation counseling and psychology, but I really attribute a lot of this to my upbringing, which was in the Midwest. I grew up on a farm. My mother was a teacher. My aunt was actually a dean of a college of education. And my mom taught second grade for 32 years in the same classroom. And I joke about growing up in second grade as I learned a lot about teaching. I became a teacher myself. I taught for 25 years in academia in 2 different university settings, running graduate programs. And really that, I think, is where it started, when I remember the story of a little boy who couldn't learn how to read, and how concerned my mother was about him, taking him to a university over the summer. I was in tow, and they figured out back in those days he had something called dyslexia, which wasn't very well known. And now, of course, we hear about it a lot more. So it really is my roots that propelled me forward, and many years of experience within the rehab counseling program and the field, and landed me building an institute in Southern California that then evolved into the Neurofeedback clinics. And after I retired, I opened my own clinics, and I'm now running those under my own company.
Wow. So, hey, Dr. Bell, in the chat, I don't know if you get an opportunity to see in the chat.
Yes,
But
okay. I can see it. So hey there, Dr. Connie. How you doing?
Good to see you again.
Yeah,
As always.
it's always good to see you and have an opportunity to have a sit down and share the wonderful work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
You know, we've chatted before about your how you learned from your mom. So what were some of the symptoms that you know that characterizes ADHD? Some of the ones that she saw in the classroom with those with those little busy boys.
It did tend to be the boys, and still does in the classroom, that teachers struggle with, although the girls are there too. They're just more quiet. So I just always remember this one story. She would come home at night saying, this little boy cannot sit in his seat for anything. She'll be giving instructions, turn around from the board, and he's on top of the desk, or he's under the desk, or he's beside the desk. He absolutely could not sit still in the chair. And there were just, every year, you know, there was someone she was struggling with. And I think in today's world, teachers are facing a lot more of that. And we've had some of those discussions about the frequency and the increased prevalence rate of ADHD these days.
That's the hyperactivity symptoms. But what does the inattentive symptoms look like?
You know, I think it's such an important question that we look at this, because we often think of ADHD as being the little child who runs around that can't sit in the chair. And that is such a typical idea about ADHD. And it's so much broader than this. I work with children and adults. Our youngest has been 3, the oldest 93. And I joke we had to teach both of them how to use the mouse, but they succeeded. And it really is about understanding how the brain's working. We oftentimes attribute behaviors to willful bad behavior. So if a child is having to be told repeatedly, go do this, go do this, go do this, we kind of as adults assume this child just isn't, quote, paying attention and is willful in this. But what I've discovered over the 16 years of doing this is that this typically is not willful bad behavior. This really is something else going on underneath these labels of ADHD, learning disabilities, oppositional defiant disorder, intermittent explosive disorder. You kind of go on and on down the DSM-5, and a lot of times what we are finding about 85% of the time in my clinic, children and adults have something called auditory and visual processing problems that I believe is the root cause of a lot of what people are struggling with children and adults.
Well, Dr. McReynolds, can for the people out there that don't know what ADHD is, can you please explain to them so that they can get a better understanding of what this is, and whether it's a disease or
well, I take a little different tack on it, so I'm really glad to be here and to be able to talk about this. So ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and that's the acronym. There also in the past was something called Attention Deficit Disorder, ADD, but that pretty much has been subsumed by the ADHD overall. So there's hyperactivity, there's inattentiveness within these diagnoses, and then there's the combined presentation where you have something of everything. And the characteristics typically, and everyone who's going to hear this, don't think just because you're forgetful that you have ADHD, because you may not. It may just be a bad day, or maybe your brain's just tired. So when I describe this, you don't necessarily have to diagnose yourself with this, but if the shoe fits, you know, we can talk. So part of what this is about is really not being able to attend to details. Disorganization can be a key factor for adults and children. I talk about the backpack. You look in it and it looks like something blew up in there because they just can't get anything organized. Or you tell the child, go get your shoes, get the backpack, brush your teeth, and feed the dog, and you turn around, all they're doing is playing with the dog. And so this is the morning routine every day. And it gets old for parents, it gets old for teachers, and they begin thinking that these behaviors are chosen behaviors, when in fact, likely they are not.
So, you know, what is the impact then of having these challenges in terms of inability to pay attention or can't sit still, you know, in terms of schoolwork, relationships, parenting?
It's significant for a lot of people. For children, again, back to my mom, taught second grade for 32 years. Children who are not reading on grade level by the end of third grade are really at risk. Fourth grade on and not doing well academically, these children oftentimes end up dropping out, failing out, ending up just not doing well at all. Adults actually struggle at work. I had a gentleman in his 50s that we worked with who was getting ready to, as he said, lose yet another job because he couldn't remember what his boss was telling him. So this can have far-reaching and significant implications for children and adults.
So we're coming up here on a break here real quickly. It's then also let's touch upon again what's the impact too upon the relationships, right? Here as peer to peer, parent to child, and looks like we're going to do that when we come back from the break. Does that sound right, Dr. JC?
Yes, we're going to take a station break, but I tell you, I know you're already interested in what Dr. McReynolds is talking about, because that's a problem that we see, and that's getting a better understanding. It will help us better react and better help others out. So if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on, ask any questions in the comments. We'll get you an answer, or pick up the phone, dial 1-888-344-1170. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley.
A black man.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Heaven abounds in you, enlightens, uplifts, inspires, and invites you to live a life that's engaged, joyous, and limitless, the sweet spot of life. Take this journey in oneness. We are and have all that God, the infinite creative source of the universe, is. You are infinite potentiality, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. Heaven abounds in you.
Dr. James JC Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life.
Country life and back again, sharing its hard-earned lessons to educate, encourage, and enlighten our next generation of leaders and heroes. Get your copy of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James J.C. Cooley, available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold.
It's the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Dr. James JC Cooley.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. And you know what I tell you, this is such a serious topic. But you know what? Todd is playing that music in the background at the studios, and I almost hey Todd, I was getting in the groove, man.
Got some good chair dance moves there.
You know, man, this is such a fantastic topic, and we're learning so much, and we just got started. But we're going to pick it up. I'm going to ask the first question, and Dr. Ballin got the next 2 or 3 in this segment. But if you want to be part of the conversation, if you got a question, all you have to do is just go to the comments ask any comments on whichever platform that you're watching us on. Ask any questions that you might have, or pick up the phone, dial KC Big Crew or 1-888-344-1170 AM. 1170 answer KCBQ. And my main man Todd, my producer there, FM 96.1, will put you through. I tell you, Dr. McReynolds, you know, I know this might not be, I mean, how many estimate folks, I'm talking about children in the United States have, I'm talking about estimate, might have been diagnosed with ADHD?
Well, the number keeps increasing. So currently the estimates are around 7.1 million children, which is somewhere around 11%, and that's ages 3 to 17. This is actually about 1 million more than diagnosed in 2022 compared to 2016. So we're really seeing an uptick in these diagnoses, and I think there's some reasons for that we may delve into, but again, sensitivity and awareness of this, I think, is really important.
And then what about, you're talking about the numbers of kids, then also what about the differences in gender?
Mhm. There are some differences. I am not quite sure if it's just because boys tend to act out a little more, that maybe we're more aware of this, but boys typically are around 14.5% are boys diagnosed, and the girls are right around 8%. So that's a pretty big difference if we think about the numbers when that breaks down. But again, part of my experience has been is that there may be a lot more girls who are struggling with the inattentive portion of this, where the boys may have a little more of the hyperactivity piece and they may act out in class more. Girls oftentimes will tend to withdraw, kind of hide out in the classroom, not draw attention to themselves, which then causes some difficulty in being able to identify that something is going on and they're struggling.
And then what about the numbers of adults that we're looking at?
I'm sorry?
What about the numbers of adults that are affected?
It's about the same, but I do believe we're probably not fully aware of how this is affecting adults, in part because for the longest time, people were told this was something that they would grow out of when they got into adulthood. And it just simply isn't necessarily the truth. I think people can develop compensatory strategies to manage what's going on, but I don't know that they necessarily outgrow it. And this is where I think a lot of difficulty is coming in the workplace. There's a lot that's been written about this nowadays, that people at work are really struggling. And there's more, I think, awareness, which is probably a good thing to help people. Again, we had a gentleman who was in his 50s who showed up getting ready to lose yet another job. When I assessed him, it turned out he had auditory processing memory problems. So he actually broke down in tears when I showed him the information, the data that we had collected through the assessment, because his response was he always just thought he wasn't very bright. And this is such a huge red flag for, I think, all of us, because children who are struggling will almost always default to thinking that they aren't smart, when in fact they can be very brilliant children, but they just can't demonstrate it if they can't remember or they're not able to process visual information properly. So really getting to the root cause of this, I think, is a mission that I'm on, I know for sure, for the rest of my life, to really help people understand what is happening here, and that there is something that we can actually do about this. If we can uncover it, figure out what this is, and then there's something we actually can do to help resolve it. And I think we're on the right track.
Dr. McReynolds, do you believe that some people just casually say that, oh, I think I have ADHD without even being diagnosed? I guess my question is the casual throwing in the air that you have something when you have not been properly diagnosed from a professional is in itself careless. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's kind of a double-edged sword to all of this, with diagnostic labels and with just kind of throwing around diagnostic labels, because anyone can kind of claim anything. What really matters to me is kind of where the rubber hits the road. It's like what's happening in your life. So tell me if you feel like you have this going on, what is it that specifically is affecting you? What do you see in your life? For example, the gentleman who couldn't remember what the boss was telling him all the time and was in jeopardy of losing his job. He didn't know he had something going on underneath that. He just assumed he wasn't smart. And yet there was something that literally could be addressed to take care of it. So when people show up or call me or ask me questions about this, it's always like, tell me what's going on in your life. Because I need to understand what the true application is, what the true lived experience is. Everyone's story is a little bit different. I can have 10 children walk in diagnosed with ADHD. All 10 of them are going to look and present completely differently because they all have a unique situation that's going on with their auditory and visual processing. So we're looking at 37 areas of that, which is a much broader span than most people are looking at. And it really does help people understand, oh, it's my sequencing. So the little boy who can't remember and turns around, you're playing with the dog, well, that could be auditory sequencing memory. So maybe he can't hang on to those multi-step instructions. So again, it's like, what's really going on in the person's life? We need to understand that first.
Wow.
So, interesting enough, Connie, actually, JC, when I was coming back from the flight from visiting you guys, I sat next to this lady and she was talking about one of her coworkers, and she was saying he's really bright, but he's lazy. He doesn't do the work. I end up having to do his work for him. And as I listened to him and I looked at her, I said, have you ever heard that he has ADHD? I said, he sounds just like one of my family members. And she was like, no, I never considered that. I said, yeah, because when you're talking about somebody who's right, but is still having difficulty completing the task, and the work they do was very tedious. And I said, so that kind of work is going to be difficult for him. It's not interesting. It's not stimulating. It's tedious. He's not going to do well with that kind of work. So it really shifted her perceptions and her opinions of him. And I think would help improve their relationships, which is, what I was kind of getting at before we went to break about asking that question about how it impacts the relationships.
Yes, it has significant impact on relationships. Husbands and wives, how many times have we heard, oh, he doesn't listen, or, she doesn't listen? How many times do we hear this comment made? I just remember one client, I was working with the husband, and he called me. We've been working with him for a while, and he said, I have good news to report. It's like, well, what's that? And he said, well, last night my wife called me again on the way home from work and gave me the grocery list. He said, the difference is this time I got everything she needed.
Yay.
I'm happy today.
Absolutely. And then what about the kid relationships, the peer-to-peer and also the parent-child relationship?
Oh, goodness. Because if you can't read nonverbal processing with interpersonal communication, 85% of what we're interpreting from people is really the nonverbal. And if you have visual processing problems, you may not be able to interpret that correctly. And so that leaves you feeling isolated, ostracized at times. Sometimes the children can't understand jokes because they're not processing the information properly. Again, this has nothing to do with intelligence. And then parent-child, teacher-child, if parents and adults are thinking this child is engaging in willful bad behavior, well, we know where that goes. There's a lot of judgment around that. There's a lot of kind of saying, straighten up, get with it, listen, pay attention. If I can't pay attention, telling me to pay attention probably isn't going to be a strategy that's going to yield results for either of us. So we really have to rethink this and understand that there could be something else much deeper going on here, that if this child, and I've written in my book, most children want to please adults, they don't want to be in trouble. And so if we kind of go with that, they want to make people happy. Doesn't mean we don't have some, childhood behaviors in here. But generally, children want people to be happy with them. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be pointed out in the classroom. They don't want this going on. I had a story of a little boy whose the teacher put him on a one-legged stool because she thought it would improve his attention.
Hey, Doc, hold that thought. We got to take a station break.
Okay.
But we're going to come back. We're going to pick it up. We got a lot more of this conversation with Dr. Connie McReynolds. And just like I keep telling you, if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you are watching us on and go to the comments and just put it in there, any question that you might have, or pick up the phone and dial 1-888-344-1170. Again, that's 1-888-344-1170. Remember, it's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley.
Country Boy.
The James Cooley Show. It's your life. That's right.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do.
The James Cooley Show. It's your life. That's right. It's the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Dr. James J.C. Cooley. Yeah. Come on.
Because a bigger, better, and more impactful life awaits you. Get the new audio version of his book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, by Dr. James Cooley, on Amazon or wherever books are sold.
Let's go. It's the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Dr. James J.C.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show with Your Life. And I tell you, Todd, Dr. McReynolds is really educating us, and a lot of things that she's talking about. I mean, I had no idea. First of all, I had no idea what ADHD.
That's because you're focused. It's like focused.
Not always. I might have a little ADHD in me as well. What are your thoughts, Todd?
Well, yeah, I had a really good question, but I lost my train of thought.
Oh man! Whenever you get ready for the question, just hit me on the private chat, and we'll make sure you get that question in. Wow, this has been extraordinary, and we know we got 2 more segments to go. But Dr. McReynolds, I know you done kind of gave the real cause of ADHD. But can you talk about that a little bit more, and why is it important to remove the stigma behind that diagnosis?
Mm-hmm. Well, I come from the field of rehabilitation counseling, and really what I learned early on is to not buy too deeply into some of the diagnoses that folks walked in with, because we really needed to understand the person before we tried to figure out what was really the diagnosis. And that's been my approach all along, is really get the story first, and then let's figure out what's going on. And so when we think about ADHD and we think about the impact of this and we really consider how all of this fits together, it's a significant challenge that most people are struggling with, and they don't really know what that is. So I hope I answered that question there. I can dive in deeper if you wish.
But how do we remove the stigma from people's minds? I mean, they come up with certain things that it's not proven, it's not this, it's just that that's what they think, not knowing and having an understanding. How do we educate others to remove that?
Well, I think from my standpoint, really is just understanding and having compassion toward the fact that someone might be struggling with something, no matter what we call it. There's so many labels out there with the ADHD label. Some parents really struggle to have their children diagnosed. They feel like it would be helpful. Others will do anything to keep from having that child diagnosed, to have that in their school records, because there is some tendency for the label to stick. I know my mother, I learned that early on. I learned that from her teaching second grade. It's like she would say, I'm not putting this in this child's chart because I don't want this to influence the rest of this child's trajectory at the school. I know what's going on here, but if I document this in a certain way, then it kind of casts a shadow upon this child, and she didn't want that to have happened to that child. We just really, I think, have to understand that people are on their own journey, and if we can try to understand what they are struggling with, then we build more compassion and more understanding, and that's what these children need. They don't need more harshness or more punishment. Adults don't need rejection. They don't need being stigmatized because they're struggling with something. Let's figure out what's going on, and let's find a pathway to help them improve their quality of life. And I think if we take that higher road in working with people, then we move away from that stigmatization, which is a judgment of person. So stigma means there's a stigma, a mark upon this person. Is what that really means. And that doesn't feel very good, which is why I tend to steer away from diagnostic labels. And I will tell parents that every time they're here. It's like, if you need a diagnosis here in the state of California, we can go there. However, what I would prefer to say is we have some situations of processing challenges, and let's work on that. And let's see if we can't get this resolved so that we can move on, and your child or your loved one, your spouse, your parent, whomever it is, you can go on and do well. And how about if we just focus on that instead?
Let's talk about your book, Solving the Riddle. First of all, can you tell our viewers and our listeners why you wrote the book? What can they expect to get out of the book? And why it's so important that they understand your thoughts and what you put in the book?
So this book came about, I actually believe I started it. I found some notes the other day that went clear back to 2016. It was published last year in 2023. So I clearly had a plan along the way that I needed to get this information out. It just took a little bit for me to be able to get it pulled together in a manner that I was really happy with. And so this book breaks down. I have stories of the children, some of whom we've worked with here, all of them I've worked with, but the stories in there really tell the tale of how children are showing up in my clinics. And I want people to understand that just because the child is struggling doesn't mean this is willful bad behavior or that we don't have hope, because so many times there just isn't hope in people's worlds. They believe that they get this diagnosis of ADHD and that this is the end is here, that there's nothing that they can do about that. And that couldn't be further from the truth based on the 16 years of what I've been doing here.
So you are also a rehabilitation counselor. You mentioned that. And just for clarity purpose, we want to make sure folks understand you don't mean drug rehabilitation counselor.
Right.
So can you just clarify that a little bit more?
Sure. So, yes, I think that's a really good point, because they hear rehab and people think, oh, she does drug and alcohol treatment. It's like, well, that could be a portion of what I have done. And yes, I have worked in the chemical dependency treatment center at a VA when I was going through my doc program. So yes, I have worked there, and mental health institutes and lockdown mental facilities. However, rehabilitation counseling is about anyone who's struggling with any kind of a limitation can be physical, mental, emotional, whatever it might be, that's getting in the way of them living their best life. And so the key with the rehabilitation counselor is to figure out what's going on, and let's see what we can do as a workaround. Let's see what we can do to resolve the limitations. And that is exactly what I brought into the development of my clinics and my company in working with people of all ages. It's really, let's find the barriers, let's figure out what's going on here, let's find the workaround, and let's get you on your way.
And then I think it would also be helpful to have some specific examples of what it looks like when you're having auditory processing difficulty or visual processing difficulties.
Well, let's start with visual, because I think people don't anchor in too well with the visual. They think, oh, this is vision. Oh, they just need to wear glasses, perhaps, or they're not hearing well, so let's get them some hearing aids. And it couldn't be further from the truth. That is not what this is. This is about processing problems. So if I have visual processing problems, let me use an example. So I'm sure some of your listeners have children that you walk into their bedroom and it looks like a complete disaster area, and you've given instructions over and over and over to clean up the room and it never gets better. Or maybe you say, pick up the toys, and you come back 5 minutes later and nothing has been happening here.
Or make up your bed, right?
Oh, make the bed. It's like that never happens. Pick up your shoes, put your dirty clothes away, organize your backpack. Disorganization is one of the key factors of a visual processing problem. It could be visual memory. So visual memory is, where did I put my car? Where are my shoes? What happened to my keys? They can't remember where they set something. So that can be a visual memory processing problem. There's also a piece to this, though, that I think is kind of important for people to understand. In some cases, this actually can affect people's perception of where they are in relationship to other proximity to things. So these are sometimes children or people who bump into walls, trip over things, drop things. That can actually be a part of visual processing as well. For auditory, it's maybe a little bit easier to kind of resonate with this, which is, again, the child, you're giving multi-step instructions, it never happens. The husband can't remember the grocery list to save his life on the way home to the wife. And other parts of that can be, this is one of the telltale signs for one part of this auditory processing, which is if you hear every sound that's going on around you, and it all seems to come in all at once at the same time, and it's really difficult to zero in on the main speaker, that can actually be a sign of a visual processing challenge as well. In my book, I go much deeper into all of this because you have a lot more time to read these chapters. So there's a full chapter on auditory, a full chapter on visual with some checklists in there to help you figure out if you or your loved one fall in these categories.
Yeah, I just remember you before you sharing a story too with me about telling a kid to make up their bed, which is why I brought that up, because look at it and they can't even process how to start and what to do. So
Right.
If you could just tell us a little bit more, we're about to go to break, and then if we need to.
Sure. So this one teenager was talking about his life before neurofeedback and after, and he was instructed to make his bed, and he said he would stand there, he'd look at that, and he said this would be a project that will never end. He had no idea where to start, how to finish it, and knew that there wasn't any way he could ever get it done in a day, let alone a week. And then after neurofeedback, he said, here's the difference. I look at the bed, it's like, well, you take off the sheets, you take off the cover, you put the sheets back on, put the cover back on, and you put the pillows, and you're done. And he said before that, he could not organize any of that activity to know what he was supposed to do. That's a classic case of visual processing as well.
Wow. Hold that thought. We got to take a station break. This is so good to get a better understanding of a lot of these things, because just like we talked about earlier, there is misconception, there is stigmas that place and labels that are placed. But as you are eloquently presenting this, we're getting a better understanding. And so our viewers out there, if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the platform that you're watching us on, ask any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. Is your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity. Coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley.
Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be on it, to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z, and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection.
Dr. James J.C. Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you,
Back again, sharing his hard-earned lessons to educate, encourage, and enlighten our next generation of leaders and heroes. Get your copy of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James J.C. Cooley, available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold.
Yeah. Dr. James J.C.
hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and this is gonna be a short segment. Todd, I know this is gonna be a short segment. It's so exciting. It's so exciting, Todd.
I was gonna say, now you know Todd says is you old because you chair dancing.
Oh yeah, he I know that. Hey Todd, have you thought about that question, man?
No, I didn't get the question, but there was a caller that called in and would love to get the contact information for your guest, for Dr. Connie.
Dr. Connie, can you please provide that contact information?
Absolutely. So you can reach me through my website, which is www.conniemcreynolds, ConnieMcReynolds.com. The email address is first name, CONNIE at McReyno.com. So you can email me directly there. And I also want to point out on the website, there's opportunities for a free guidebook that I've just put out, which is Chaos to Clarity, which are practical tips for dealing with disorganization, stress, and burnout. That's a free download for you, as well as if you sign up for the newsletter. And I promise I won't pummel you with too many emails. But you can actually get the first 3 chapters of my book for free if you want to just dive in to kind of see what's going on here.
Oh,
and I also,
I'm locked in on that one, and I hope the caller is locked in on it because I'm very interested in reading your book, and so you heard that information, and we'll put it on our website, all of our social media platforms as well.
And Dr. JC, I just want to just add this really quickly. Because of her work, I actually have a member of mine that I recommended do this, and I can definitely see the improvement in their functioning and their ADHD symptoms after having treatments with Dr. Connie with neurofeedback, and I am recommending it to some other folks that I'm working with, even some folks that are in higher ed, some folks that I know that are in medical school and residency, some difficulties, and they're still struggling with it. So I definitely recommend the work she's doing.
I second that one. I mean, and just research that. Hey, get in touch with her, call her, look her up. I tell you, this segment is dedicated to Rosati Pieces. My main man, Steve Silas, in Temecula, California, wine country. That's what we call it. I think we got 63 wineries there now. But you know what? I tell you, if you in Temecula and you go to one of the wineries, all of them fantastic. But when you're leaving a winery, you want you a absolutely fantastic meal. I love everything on the menu, especially the deep dish pizza. The deep dish pizza. Yeah, risotto. There's this a Chicago pizza, and it's absolutely fantastic. So when you are in Temecula visiting wine country, reach out to Risotto Pizza Pub. Tell Steve and Andy that I sent you there. They might, I don't know, they might give you a free slice of pizza. I don't know about that yet, but hey, Steve, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know you're watching, when you're in Temecula, that's how we do things. So I want to get back to this. We only got about 3.5 minutes left in the show. Um, but Dr. McReynolds, can you explain the neurology feedback work and its potential non-invasive treatment for ADHD? I mean, I'm curious to hear about that.
Well, thank you for that. It's a form of biofeedback, and so really it's a non-invasive process where, in a nutshell, what we're doing is measuring brain waves. A child or an adult really is engaged in a training plan, and we call it kind of a gym for your brain. And through the process of repetition, which is how everyone has learned anything you've ever had, good habits and bad, they get hardwired in. And what we do is capture the process of neuroplasticity, which allows us to help you specifically train these areas of the brain that just need to be trained. It's all non-invasive. You're not getting shots or shocked or anything. I used to go out and do a lot of presentations, and people say, well, is this going to shock me? And I said, well, no, it isn't, but your results might be shocking. So we can actually help you improve your quality of life. And for those who are in the workforce and may be struggling, I do have a whole new line of assessment processes that are up on the website under assessments, where I can just help you figure out if you're in a good job match. Because part of what I was sharing with that gentleman before that we worked with, and I had a veteran who was in a call center. It turns out she didn't have any auditory processing memory, and she was in a call center, and it was absolutely sending her over the edge. So once we figured this out, it's like, oh, this is an appropriate job, and this is what you can do. Once we can figure it out, I'm pulling on my rehab counseling of 35 years, the assessments that we've been doing for 16 years, and I've built that new process for folks, and they can sign up through the website, and I can help you. It doesn't matter where you sit. We can work with you to see if you can get some results and some relief for you.
Can you tell our viewers and listeners that website and your contact information one more time? Because I see that we got others that are very interested in reaching out and chatting with you or talking with you.
Absolutely. Email is CONNIE@MCREYNO.com. And the website is www.conniemcreynolds.com.
Wow. I want to thank Dr. Ballin for recommending you and you being on the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Ballin.
It was a pleasure. Happy to do it.
I also want to thank you, Dr. Connie, for reaching out, and I'm just being on the show. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you as well. I got to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley and my producer, KCBQ, AM 1170 Answer, FM 96.1, Todd Pirate. Most important, I'd like to thank our listeners and viewers for tuning into the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on 68 different platforms, and also on Saturday, we're live Saturday, we're on Saturday and Sunday, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and also Sunday in prime time again from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I want to thank all of you. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our listeners for giving us this opportunity to tune in and believing in us. And I tell you what, always, always, always in life, whatever you do, dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. It's your life. And I tell you, we'll be back. Just like I said, tomorrow, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Sunday as well. The best of the James Cooley Show. It's your life. We'll see you then.
It's your life.